Alright, YouTube, it's time for a new general literary update. Things are looking up. Now, first I should mention this. The Cultus Arborum, in just a couple days of being available, has done pretty damn well. It looks like some people were looking forward to buying it. It is a fairly good title overall anyway. It's an academic or quasi-academic work, late 1800s. It's sort of the golden age of people getting these weird theories into the mix of human creation and culture and all of these things. Of course, that's on tree worship. But there are two other works that the same printing company released that are basically similar to Cultus Arborum. One was mentioned explicitly by at least one of my subscribers here, Ophiolitrea, which is serpent worship. Oh, I'm excited for that. I am too, by the way. I haven't read it yet, because I hadn't begun the editing process. The third is Phallism, which I'm going to be releasing both of those before Halloween. They're full-length works, but they're on the shortish side. They're like 120 to 150 pages in their final format. The originals, they have a fairly large edge trim, so it makes them look longer than they really were. So those will be done before Halloween, both of them. I'm hoping possibly to get them done before the end of September. Honestly, I don't know whether that's possible or not. But they're in a semi-modern format anyway, no illustrations to be rendered. That makes it quicker. It makes it a lot easier on me, trust me, so I'm going to try. Those will be things that people they'll come highly recommended. They're academic works more than they are strictly spiritual, do-it-yourself, cast a spell, occultism, which I think some people appreciate more than the more literalistic side. The second update is Sickness and Hell. I'm still on Chapter 11, the beginning of it, and Chapter 10, of course, being done. I've decided to take a few days to just consider what direction I'm going to take the work in for the next 3 or 4 chapters, which is the bulk of the work as far as action, as far as the true morbidity that I can dig up deep from within the dark depths of my soul for such a work, because up until now a lot of it was character development and even more setting, because I find those important. Setting I like to describe in, grueling levels of detail, because I like people to get a good mental image of the setting in which anything is taking place. Once the setting is fully described, though, you can launch into a lot more action, make it more grotesque, make it more morbid, bloody, gory, degenerated, and so forth. And that's the goal for the next few chapters, so I need to think about specifically what's going to happen in them, because I've decided not to fully follow the original storyline. There were some weaknesses in the plot of the original storyline, even above and beyond the fact that it jumped around. The meat tree will definitely be there, though. It will get written in. Satan will definitely attend a disco party. Trust me. Spoiler alert. Sorry about that. But yeah, there's Satan there. There's a meat tree. Read into that what you will. I'm sure that anyone who finds that sort of stuff funny will be on the floor rolling around with their ribs cracking by the time they finish this work. I can promise you that. It's a guarantee. The third update, The Greater Key of Solomon, I've begun actually editing. It took me days just to format it. I am using the first edition. It is out of copyright, thankfully. But it's going to take a while. I'm going to try to get it done before Halloween, but I can't make any promises, not just because of other work that I'm working on. Garden, too, takes up a lot of my time. There are other things that I do in the world as well. But the illustrations, let's talk about those for a second. I'm not an artist. I can digitally render simple illustrations, and they'll look fine. I can make my own border designs and separators. I can make things look nice. There are generators online for like Old English text and things like that that look really nice. They look highly decorative and happy. And that's sort of what I've been doing for most works. A lot of these don't have any illustrations. Most alchemical works don't. Even like the 12 Keys of Basil Valentine, somebody left a poor review on the edition that I released. Oh, it doesn't contain the woodcuts. The original edition didn't contain any artwork. It was just an alchemical manuscript. The 12 keys were not illustrated until the German edition. I like to keep it original when possible. But this work contains over 90 specific figures that I'm going to have to draw, and that's going to take longer than the editing. And the editing's about 20% done. The formatting being done, I've got to go through, I've got to modernize the language, which doesn't take too long. make sure everything's grammatically correct. There are a few spelling errors that I've noticed in there, not just, English, English usage as opposed to American English, but actual spelling errors. I've got to make sure that everything's in the same format, everything's fully standardized, there are places to put all the images, and with the images, I'm going to try to break them up a little bit more, because Mathers threw them in as entire pages that are literally nothing more than illustration, illustration, illustration. There's like 12 for each of these pages sometimes. And I'd like to break them up a little bit more and intersperse them with the text to make it more user-friendly, I guess, for people who want to actually use this specific grimoire. Now, this is an important work, so I can't spare any expensive time in making sure that it's as perfect as I can make it, because this may be more popular than the Grand Grimoire. At the very least, it'll probably hit the top 5 sellers list. It's a famous work, just like the Lemegeton, which also was released around the same time. I'll be releasing that as well. That one has even more illustrations. There are 72 just for the Ars Goetia section. So it's going to take a long time to do this, but it's going to be worth it, I think. These will be heavy hitters. They're works that I would have worked on more than a year ago, really, if I had known that they were out of copyright at the time. I thought that the cutoff was in the 1890s, and I wasn't actually aware that the copyright laws were as they actually stand. So then I kicked myself after when I realized this not that long ago. But then I realized, oh, well, these older works weren't, in quite as good a format as I use now anyway. I have to go back still and change the format for some of the really early works that I did. So I guess it works out in the end, because I have more experience as an editor now, therefore I can make it far superior to how I would have made it early on. I will also say this. I look forward to the possibility, it's not set in stone, and I'm not going to say any more about it because it's not set in stone. I've learned my lesson in the past on this. There is a possibility that one or more of the works that I've released, that I've edited and or illustrated and or written and so forth, will be released in hardcover format by a publisher. I'm not going to mention the publisher. I'm not going to mention a timetable. I won't speak of this again until such time as is possible that it is set in stone, contract signed, and everything already printed up and ready to go. Because I learned my lesson working or trying to work with Chaosis, and having the publisher go belly up, 75% of the way through the work, has taught me a valuable lesson that don't count your chickens before they hatch. So I'm not going to start counting them. I'll just say that there's a possibility that hardcover copies, for those who wish to purchase them, will be made available. I'm going to try the best I can, if that happens, to make sure my subscribers get first crack, because it would be a limited printing. And I want it to be available to them first and foremost before any other audience gets involved. I'm going to try to set that up the best that I can. And so, yeah, there's a general literary update. And I've also obtained several dozen other works in addition to the dozens that I already had to work on. So my work is set for me through the end of 2017 at this point. I don't have to do any more digging right now. We're talking about an enormous number of works, some of which are quite a bit longer than many that I've released. For instance, Wyer's Witchcraft and Letters on Witchcraft and Demonology. It's over 300 pages in length. It's going to have to be in a larger page size. It's not going to be in a 5x8. It's going to be in a 6x9. It'll have smaller font, potentially, just to make sure that the page count doesn't get so large that people have to pay an inordinate sum for it. Because CreateSpace, for some reason, once you get above a certain threshold in pages, the price really starts to rise. I'm not exactly sure why. It might have something to do with the binding. Honestly, I don't know. I've never done bookbinding or anything like that. So I'm going to try to make sure that it stays inexpensive enough for the type of audience that I'm cultivating. That's an important work, by the way. That's at least as important as King James Demonology. More important than Demoniality. It'd be up there with Cultus Arborum, really, for something like that, or the Rosary. I've begun sort of grading the work in importance according to what I suspect will be the ultimate audience. For instance, the Greater Key may be the most popular release until I release the Lemegeton, which I can guarantee when I get that done, it'll be the most popular work that I've released. Right now it's the Grand Grimoire. Black Pullet's up there, Testament of Solomon, the Petit Albert, some of these other major grimoires are all up there. The Rosary of the Philosophers actually is right up there as well. Funnily enough, After the Ashes is my most popular authored work. I thought it would be Fruits of Eden, but it looks like After the Ashes has supplanted it in time. It might be because it's got a nice shiny yellow cover and it talks about nuclear war being inevitable. So I guess I'm sharing an audience with like David Icke or something like that at this point on this work. But it's pretty good. Yeah, it comes recommended. I would recommend all the works that I'm releasing because I wouldn't be editing them if they didn't hold some interest for me. But there are certain works that are more popular in general than others. I'm very glad at the reception that Petit Albert appears to have gotten. As well as the Grand Grimoire, all of these other things. And I think Sickness and Hell, I hope, will be my most popular work to date. I'm hoping it takes off, because I'm putting a huge amount of effort into it. As far as my edited works, what happens, happens. I didn't author them myself. I'm simply making them affordable, high quality, not facsimiles. Oh man, I could tell you some stories about seeing some crappy-ass facsimiles. I'm not just talking on Amazon itself, where dishonest individuals scan some work from their collection with all the imperfections. It's like off-center, it's tilted, it's blurry at times, it's just all sorts of terrible. And they release this, they charge like twice as much as I'll charge for a work that I've fully edited line by line myself by hand. Not just there, but just scans on like archive.org. Sometimes you go on there. There's no possibility anyone's going to use optical recognition on those PDFs. Some of them are absolutely terrible. You should have seen the struggle I had going through the Norwood Gypsies Universal Fortune Teller. And that wasn't a problem with the person who scanned it. This was a problem with the original document. You wouldn't believe how difficult it was to read certain sections and infer what was actually being said. At times it was almost gibberish because half the ink's missing, it's not quite in focus, it's a little off-center, the ink behind it from the other page has bled through. I'm like, come on. Make it a little bit easier on me, Fate, please. So yeah, I'm trying to get all of these works done. These four, though, Ophiolitrea, Phallism, Greater Key, and Sickness and Hell, must be done before Halloween, or at least 3 of them do. Greater Key, it might take a little bit too long, but it'd be done in November anyway. It wouldn't take much longer than that. But I don't think that I'll be releasing any other works other than those 4 in that time period over the next couple of months. If I do, they'll be short alchemical works that only took a fairly short time and amount of effort to actually release, just to buff up the amount of alchemy available. Some of these are neglected. Some of them you can't even find anywhere else. You couldn't find Ever-Burning Lights before then. Had to be compiled with several other works, or Pontanus work on the Philosophic Fire. Some of these, they're too short for anybody to release them solo. Nobody else bothered, I guess, to compile them with other works, so I just released 3 of them together, along with Trithemius, Ever-Burning Lights. I can't remember the 3rd work that was there. But altogether, I'm very happy with the way sales are going. The reception seems warm, very warm, and I'm excited to continue this work. It's fun. I get to play around with books all day. I'm a bibliophile anyway, so yeah, it works for me. I'm going to keep doing it for probably the rest of my life, honestly, because it's not like I can exhaust the amount of works that are there in another, 10 years or so. A whole new generation of occult works will have fallen out of copyright status. We'll be getting towards the Depression-era works. Some of those are really, really weird. A lot of Christian healing, a lot of folk materials, some herbals and so forth. And then, when I'm, getting towards late middle-aged status, you're going to start getting the really paranoid materials of the very dawn of the atomic era, some of the interwar period works, Wing Anderson's War's End. It's so warped beyond your comprehension. And then after that, it gets even better, because all of those sort of radio and TV era works from the 50s, of which there are literally tens of thousands because printing became cheaper, I guess, at the time. I can't wait to edit all of those works. I'll be doing this until I'm old and gray and I look literally like a wizard, more than I do now. It will not end. I can promise that. As long as I live and breathe, I'll be editing and writing things. That's about all. Peace out.